Alright, today we have this 2009 Genesis Coupe, and we're going to replace the starter on it. It's right down there, it's in behind that exhaust manifold. We're going to have to remove the heat shield, this coolant pipe. We might take this fuse panel out just for a little more clearance for our hands. And the manual calls for that dipstick. We might try to work around that, but we might go ahead and take it out. And we checked the bottom. There's no way to get to it really from the bottom. It's possible, but it'd be a pain in the rear. So we're gonna go ahead and work it from the top. All right, so we're gonna take our hose clamps off and pull these off. And back here in the back, we're gonna have this one and get it right there that you're gonna have to remove in order to pull this out. So we're going to remove all that, and then once we remove that, this will just pull right out of where it is. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we got our bolt out back here, and it's good. We got our hose clamps loose. You should only have to take the front one off. That one will be fine because we're going to slide this whole pipe out of there, and it can come off as one. You will have to take this little one off. I've gotten this one loose, but the hose clamp's a little old. It won't loosen all the way, so we're hoping we got it enough to slide it off. So we'll slide that off. And back here, what you'll want to do is you'll want to put you a drip pan back there, about right at where the transmission meets the motor, because you'll see once I pull this out, it's gonna drain coolant. So you want to do that, make the EPA happy. Don't get nothing on the ground. And then you've got that coolant pipe out. So you'll just have to angle it out of there, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so once you get that coolant pipe out of the way, what you'll need to do is you need to come down here and you need to get this heat shield off. And you'll see right here, we've got one 10mm right there. And we'll have to take this dipstick bolt out and get that loose. And you'll have another 10mm right there, pretty much right below the little hand sign right there. And then you'll have another one right down here, if I can get a good image of it. There it is right there. Right on the side where it drops down over the cat. So we'll grab our 10mm and we'll begin taking those off. If you don't have one, these ratchets right here, that head flops, makes it a lot easier, because if you've seen, I had it bent like this, and that's how I fit it in there like that to reach that bottom one. So these things help a lot. You can get one. It doesn't have to be, an expensive brand, just something that'll turn that bolt for you and get it out of there. It'll make your life a lot easier. And now this bottom one down here, it's in a little bit of a tight spot, so we're going to pull out a regular wrench to go ahead and break that loose and get it off. I'm going to go ahead and break this bolt loose on the dipstick tube. Get it loose. We might go ahead and pull it out. But as you can see what I was saying earlier, that ratchet makes it nice. When you're not straight on something, that thing will get you straight on it. So all you got to do is pull, and it comes right loose. And then you can just screw it on out. Make sure when you pull this dipstick tube out, this little wire's in this bracket right here, and you'll want to take that out. It just slides out the back. You don't want to pull up on that and end up breaking a connector or something like that and getting yourself into more work than you need to be. All right, so we got the heat shield off, got our bolts out. Now we can see our exhaust manifold down there, and we'll have these bolts along it. Let me turn my flashlight on. All right, you'll see these bolts sitting along top. And if I can get the angle down here, you'll see the bolts sitting on the bottom. Now we'll pull those out in order to take this manifold loose, and we'll have to take off the connector down there that connects the exhaust pipe to the cat. And then this will all slide off of there, and we'll have plenty of clearance, and we'll have to make sure we unplug our oxygen sensor, which just goes right here. So that's pretty accessible. That's a nice spot to put that. And then we'll be good to go. All right. So we got our manifold loose. We got all of our bolts off. There's 8 of them into it. Get these in the got 4 on top, 4 on the bottom. Now on our oxygen sensor, we gotta unhook that before we can drop this thing out of here. So you'll see this little gray clip, and that locks it on. So what you'll do is you'll grab it from both sides like this and just squeeze it and pull it up. Once it lifts up, you can push your little button and slide it right off. Sometimes they can be a little bit tough. Sometimes it helps if you push them down and then push the button in and then pull them up. Sometimes they have too much pressure on the tab that you can't just push that plastic button and it pop off like you want it to. And so once we get that off, the actual oxygen sensor will be on this metal tab right here. So you'll have to take your little screwdriver or something and poke this little tab loose right here, and then you can slide it off from the top. All right, so now we're under the car. You can see our starter right up in there. So as you can tell, that it's not a fun job to do from the bottom, not at all. All right, so we have to take this catalytic converter loose from the exhaust. We've got 2 18mm bolts that hold it on, and we've got this bracket that holds it to the bottom. So I always recommend, especially on these exhausts, take you some PB Blaster, something similar, and spray these bolts, because they do get rust either on the bottom of the car. Spray them and let them sit, go get you a drink or something, take a break, and then put our impact on it since we've got one. And all right, since we had 2 different size bolts, I had to go grab a 19, and now, just for the sake of making it easier, I'm gonna take this pipe off from right here just to completely get it out of the way. That way we don't have anything that we're running into as we slide this manifold out. And then we'll take this bracket off, and then we'll slide it on down. All right, so now you can see we got our bracket loose from the transmission, and our exhaust manifold is just sitting there. So we'll have to wiggle it out of there. We'll have to kind of turn it just the right way to get it out. It may make it easier if you lift up a little bit to get it at the right angle. And I can't do it with one hand, so I'll have to put the phone down, and we'll finagle that out of there. All right, so our manifold is out of the way. Now we can see where our starter goes right there. So we're gonna need to remove, there's the back of it, we're gonna need to remove this heat shield off from it right here. Take out the 10mm and pull that out, then we'll see full access to our starter. We may have to remove this motor mount for clearance. We'll see if we do when we get there, and then we'll get on with it. Alright, so you can see from the bottom, we have one starter bolt there, one starter bolt there, and that's what makes our starter loose. We take those two out. It's a lot easier to get to those from the bottom. I used a little extension just to slide in behind that bracket right there, but you can also remove it. It's just a 10mm, no big deal. And now we're ready to let the car back down, and we're going to take that motor mount off and jack our engine up. We don't have to jack it up, really. We just got to get it stable to where it's sitting on the jack and not just hanging. And what you want to do, you don't want to, if you can avoid it, jack up on this oil pan. You can kind of see where somebody jacked up on it before at some time, and we don't want to do that. I've seen people where they would put a 2x4 that would cover the oil pan, but we're going to try to avoid that as best as we can. Get us a board and maybe jack up right here on the edge, just something to hold this engine, because last thing we want to do is be replacing a seal on an oil pan, which looks like it's not the best anyways. So we'll let the car down and we'll get going on that. So we got that shield out of the way. Now we can see the whole starter right here. And it looks like we are going to have to take that motor mount off. No big deal, we can do that. And you just got the two bolts in the back here that hold the starter on. So we'll get those two bolts off. Since I'm on the lift, I don't want to take that motor mount off first. I'll go ahead and break those two bolts off. And then I'm going to put the car back on the ground to use the floor jack to hold the engine up while I put the new starter in. Alright, so we're back up top. We've got our jack in position. Now, we have to remove this engine mount. You see two of the bolts right there. And then you've got the bolt on the bottom. We've got the bolt on the top. Now what I'm going to do is remove the top bolt first, the one that is sitting on the body itself. That way, if need be, I can jack the motor up a little bit more so I can get clearance to get the rest of them off. So let's go ahead and let's get that bracket off. Alright, we got our bracket out of the way. Now we can see our starter. We'll have to take this little tab off right here, which is going to have our bolt under it that we got to take off to get the power wire off, and we'll have to unplug our switch. And there's our bracket right there. You see the 4 bolts. And so now we'll get down in here and unplug everything, and then we'll slide it right on out and slide the new one in. Alright, so here's our old starter right here and our new starter. And the one thing we want to check, well, two things. We want to make sure these connectors are the same, especially that plug. And we want to check to make sure we got the same tooth count. We want our teeth to be the same count. We don't want one with more teeth that's going to drag the flywheel and eat up at it. So it looks like we got the right part. So let's go ahead and slide it in. Alright, we got our new starter in. Everything's hooked up. Now we just got to put our engine mount bracket back on. And like I said, I'm going to tighten this up from the bottom. And so I'm going to put this engine bracket on. Then I'm going to lift it up, go under there, and tighten it up. Alright, good to go. Car's running. Thank you guys for watching. This helps you out.